Hey guys, welcome in. This is another episode of Road Rants. I'm your host, Gumball Head. Road Rants are brought to you in part by the Gumball Head Sobriety Society and is a part of the Normal Isn't Necessary podcast. Now, if you guys want to be in part of the umbrella under the Normal Isn't Necessary podcast, reach out to us at normalisn'tnecessarypodcast@gmail.com. We would love to host your pre-recorded podcast on our show. Get in contact with us. We'll go over the details and let you know what we got going on. But earlier today, I was talking about high anxiety under normal function as a result of Instagram post that I saw yesterday, which I actually investigated a little bit. Rabbi Abraham Twerski was at a dentist's office, okay? And the video I watched was from 8 years ago, so this has been around a long time, and it's probably been studied multiple times, but was at a dentist's office, and he was reading an article, and this article was, How Does a Lobster Grow? And as you watch the video, and I'll post the link to the video in the bio here, but he spoke of how does a lobster grow, and he's like, I really don't care how a lobster grows, but now I'm curious. And as he read this article went on to talk about how lobsters grow, and it spoke of a lobster gets uncomfortable in the shell because the shell is rigid, but as that lobster grows, that shell doesn't grow. The shell doesn't grow with the lobster because the lobster is a soft body with an armored shell. And as it grows, it becomes too big for that shell. So there's only one way for that lobster to get rid of that discomfort, and that is to seclude itself from predatory animals under a rock, shed the shell, and regenerate a shell. And then eventually that shell is going to get too small for the lobster, and it's going to become uncomfortable again. And Rabbi Twerski actually says if the lobster had a doctor, when it became uncomfortable, it would just go see the doctor. And the doctor would prescribe a Percocet or a Valium to the lobster, and the lobster would never shed its shell. Because whenever that lobster became uncomfortable, it would go see the doctor and it would take another pill. Over time, those pills they just take that discomfort away. But the catalyst of that, or the outcome of that, is the fact that if the lobster did go and see the doctor, it would never shed that shell, so it would never know how to work with that adversity of the discomfort. And it spoke of the fact that if we don't utilize our discomfort in adversity, we're never going to be able to grow ourselves. We're always just going to rely on chemical or something like that change. Now, when it comes to that, I've really been pondering, and I actually just was live. I went live for about 12 minutes. And I got onto this concept that I really wanted to make sure that I had recorded so I could look back at it later today. And here's the thing. I've kind of been a little weird on the whole, gray matter concept of things, and I've always kind of wondered if Alzheimer's is not just kind of like fibromyalgia. They don't know what causes it, they can't cure it, they can't figure it out. So what if it is, and I don't know, I've never read studies or anything on Alzheimer's, this is just kind of my own thought process, but what if Alzheimer's is just basically an old guy is like, fuck it, I'm done dealing with the world. I'm just going to shut down. I'm going to think what I want, do what I want. I'm going to sit here in my underpants and watch TV and forget, and then I'm just going to blame it on Alzheimer's, Or what if it's because they're so intelligent that their brain just fries out, like a living heart attack inside your head, and then as I pondered this thought, and I actually worked through this on the live that I just did about 10 minutes ago, as I worked through this, I kind of thought about something. When it comes to the information in and then information out, they can't cure Alzheimer's because they don't know what causes Alzheimer's. They can't cure cancer because they don't know what causes cancer. They can treat it, and there have been success in curing cancers, but even when they document all the data and all the information, they still can't 100% cure cancer. They can't 100% cure any disease. They can cure illness, but they cannot cure disease. They can treat it. That's your difference between illness and disease. Diseases are treatable. Illness is curable. Okay? And as I think about the justice for Otsego concept that I've been talking about lately and working through the how does a lobster grow thing, kind of made me think about how can I simplify this? So if somebody gets sick, they go to a doctor, the doctor cures their sickness, okay? Or they give them medication to treat that sickness until the sickness goes away. Our body cures itself. With disease, it doesn't work that way. With Alzheimer's, it doesn't work that way. So to simplify it even further, our brains work a lot like a breaker panel, okay? And our thoughts are from that breaker panel are the outlets. Our feelings are the outlets. Our desires are the outlets. Okay, so the breaker panel, if a breaker goes bad, you change the breaker. That breaker affects all of the appliances that are attached to that breaker. The outlet, however, is attached to that breaker. That outlet controls a few things, but it doesn't control a ton of things. Okay, so it has to break down that power. It has to break things down. Our brain is a breaker panel. The outlet, like I said, are our thoughts, our feelings, and our desires. And we could talk about switches. We could talk about outlets. We could talk about ground fault circuit interrupters. We could talk about a lot of common day things. You know, your washer, your dryer, your refrigerator, your appliances, your television, your internet cable box, this and that and the other thing. All these things are connected to power. All of that power comes from a breaker panel, which is the brain of everything, okay? Just like the brain in your head. And these outlets power our phones when they're charging, our electric toothbrushes, our alarm clocks, our refrigerators. So whenever something is plugged into an outlet, it becomes a integer of that outlet. It becomes a part of that. It will not work without that information. And if we do that with our brains, as in feelings, if we don't connect with somebody when it comes to our feelings, eventually that connection is either going to fizzle out, short out, or it's just going to go away altogether. If we don't repair that, it's not going to work. So if you plug a toaster into an outlet and leave that toaster running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until eventually that toaster burns up and stops working, that's what we do when we go to jobs that we don't like. Excuse me. That's what we do when we get married to people that we don't want to be with after a period of time. Okay, our appliances burn out. Okay, and then if we talk about switches, okay, we can convert that outlet to a switch. That outlet eventually burns something up and it doesn't work anymore. And it's either the outlet that burns up, our feelings, or it's the appliance that's plugged into that, which is directly related to the feelings, but it might not necessarily be your fault. It might be a reaction, or it might be a situation involved with whatever is plugged into that outlet. So over time, these things can disintegrate and deteriorate, fall apart, and change, but then we can throw switches in there. And a standard switch controls commonly a light or a ceiling fan or one device, maybe two devices. In my case, at the old office, I had 6 lights controlling it and being controlled by it. But if we put that into a network or a chain, eventually those light bulbs are going to burn out in those 6 lights. Eventually the ceiling fan bulbs are going to quit working one at a time, and the ceiling fan is going to far surpass those ceiling fan bulbs. Now, here's a curious question. Why can a ceiling fan stay on 24/7 for 20 years, never get shut off, and never burn out, but you change the bulbs in that ceiling fan over and over and over again? How is that possible? How does that work? Well, different types of electricity. That's like different types of friends. It's a different type of motor. That's like different types of environments. Okay? Different inputs, different outputs, different concepts. Okay? So there are differences in those things. And eventually, someone's going to flip the switch off to that ceiling fan. And if they don't, either the ceiling fan's going to burn out, or it might never burn out. Might not ever burn out. Okay? But the concept is this. You do have to change the ceiling fan bulbs for the light, but you don't have to change the ceiling fan. Well, they're two different things. They're two different entities. A light bulb works on a filament. Wait, that's an idea. And the ceiling fan just works on a motor that's wire wound. It's a magnetron. Okay? So different types of energy or different types of motion are being put into motion. So in order for a light bulb to work, it needs to have the gas and constantly fire to give that gas or the energy in the filament, the glass that shrouds the light bulb, protects that electrical element, but you can make a light bulb work without that glass around it. And now in this day and age, you can make that outlet or that light bulb work without a filament because of LEDs, okay? Light emitting diodes. So, and those are small and they have a very low current draw. But we don't program our brains to do that. Our brains are constantly going full force, metal halide, mercury vapor, commercial, industrial fucking light bulbs all the time. Meanwhile, our fan is just turning. It's kind of minding its own business, okay? So the energy that comes from our brain connects to this switch. Sometimes we need to align things. Sometimes we need to power those switches down. That's where depression comes in. Depression creates that switch, and in reality, it's kind of a pressure switch. Think about it this way. If your garbage disposal is working, and then all of a sudden it's not working, there are a few easy things to troubleshoot on the garbage disposal. You can check the breaker in the breaker panel and see if the breaker's tripped. If the breaker isn't tripped, there might be a tripped breaker on the underside of your garbage disposal, which is a small black or red button underneath your garbage disposal. Press that button and your garbage disposal may or may not work. If the garbage disposal is trying to work and it makes a humming sound, that means that the mechanics of the garbage disposal are locked up. They make a special key that comes with your garbage disposal that you could turn the motor of the garbage disposal either to the left or to the right to free up whatever is hindering that activity of the garbage disposal. Okay? So in a perfect world, check the breaker. If the breaker isn't tripped, check the breaker on the appliance. If that is tripped and you are able to get it to turn on but it makes a buzzing sound, then your motor is probably not working. We just troubleshot 100% of our minds in a small and simplified situation. When it comes to, you showed up for work and you weren't happy because you weren't feeling well, but you took some medicine and now you're feeling well, and you're feeling well enough to continue through your workday. Sometimes it doesn't work that way though. Sometimes our garbage disposal breaks down. Sometimes it's time to get a new garbage disposal. And that is how our bodies work. Sometimes we just need to change. Sometimes we need to switch. Sometimes we need to switch jobs. Sometimes we need to switch relationships. But sometimes we don't want to do that. We don't ever want to hire a plumber to come out and change a garbage disposal. So we either do it ourselves, we go without the garbage disposal, or we hire someone to come and do that work. So how does a lobster grow? Well, the lobster does things by himself. But if he doesn't know what he's doing, then he either figures it out or he hires somebody that knows what they're doing. But a lot of times that lobster doesn't just say, hey, you know what, this shell is hugging me too tight. I'm just going to, shut it down. I'm just going to just not worry about it. Wait a minute. That's not how growth works. You got to figure out how to make that change. So let's go back to the breaker panel real quick and kind of put this into a different perspective. Breaker panel, working fine. All the outlets in the breaker panel are working fine. The switches are working fine in the breaker panel. The appliances are working fine in the breaker panel. There's nothing wrong with our electrical service. Okay? So in our brain, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with my body. There's nothing wrong with my mind. There's nothing wrong with my soul. There's just nothing wrong. Sometimes we just take that for granted. Hey, everything's going smooth. Everything's going great. But we always anticipate something going wrong. We always anticipate something not working out appropriately. We always anticipate that. That's our high anxiety under normal function. Because there's always something in the back of our mind that's saying, I'm just waiting for shit to hit the fan. And when it hits the fan, what's going to happen? Is it going to knock the fan off balance? Is it going to break those light bulbs? Is it going to finally shut down that fan? Are we going to finally have to change that fan? Are we going to have to finally turn the fan off in order to make a change? So there's our chaos brain working again. So we never take that opportunity to relax. So when I tie this into the concept of Alzheimer's disease, if you know somebody that suffered from Alzheimer's or died with Alzheimer's, what was their life like? Were they a teacher? Were they a learner? Were they an educator? Did they live a chaotic life? Were they a drug addict? Were they the type of person that had a constantly high-functioning brain? Did the shit short circuit? Or did they just give up eventually? You know, it's crazy concepts like that bring me to thought process of how things work internally. So if we start to look at things in that regard, we start to understand and figure out these things that are not black and white. And they're not gray. They're that spectrum that I talk about, that neurodivergency. Looking at things in a completely different way. I asked my wife the other day, I said, hey, why don't chicken talk? Why do chickens only say one word? And she's like, what? I was like, why do chickens only say one word? Why do they only speak, make one sound? She's like, I don't know. I said, because they don't think outside of the box. So, it's a silly joke, but it was a funny one. Because it's a dad joke, but it's a kid joke. And it's a funny joke because it's a real joke. But it's not a joke that takes much effort to understand. It's just humor. That's the outlet. That's not the ceiling fan. That's not the microwave that you have to press 10 buttons and then start. I grew up with a dial microwave. Turn it past 2. If you want it for a minute, you turn it past 2 and come back to 1. Okay, you want it for 10 minutes, you turn the dial to 10, you hit start, it's going. On my microwave, I have to do 4 button presses and then start. So that's 5 button presses in order to do 10 minutes. 1, 0, 0, 0, start. Okay, and I was at the gas station this morning, and she was like, hey, are you paying with a credit card or a debit card? I said, yes. She said, well, go ahead and use the self-checkout. And I looked at her and I said, no. And here's the thing, and this spawned another mindset thing, kind of a mind fuck actually, is we always pay a convenience fee, but we never can charge a convenience fee. The gas station that I went to for the last 6 months, in the morning they offer buy one, get one donuts. They offered buy one, get one croissants or specialty sandwiches, okay? Every once in a while, I would get one. I would get either a buy one, get one donut, or I would get a buy one, get one croissant. And if I didn't bring a lunch that day, I would eat one in the morning. I'd have another one in the afternoon, okay, for my lunch break. And we're at the point now where we're not spending money on dumb stuff. And on those days, sometimes I just needed to do that because I forgot my lunch or because, I wanted it and it sounded good. So, but now they're no longer offering the buy one, get one free sandwiches. And they're no longer offering the buy one, get one free donuts. Now it's 2 donuts for $3.39 or 2 breakfast sandwiches for like $6. Not only that, but they changed up their pizza that they had in the afternoons. And I never bought their pizza. I don't care for gas station pizza. But Not only that, but they changed the shape of the pizza, they changed the recipe of the pizza, and they increased it $1. All of this happened at the same time that they installed a self-checkout machine in their business. Now, go to Walmart or go to any of the conglomerates, they have self-checkouts. Okay, you can't avoid it, it's there. But then they want to check your receipt at the door. A lot of you know that my Walmart is not my friend. You know, they stop me at the door, I need to see your receipt. No, you don't. And I walk right past. They can't stop you. They can't intervene. Some people are like, dude, why are you such a prick about that? Because if I went through a cash register and somebody checked me out, then they know everything that I had in my cart or in my basket. I put it on the conveyor belt. You rang it up. You put it in the bag. I walked out the door. I don't pay a membership to come here. You don't need to see my receipt. Well, we do that to reduce theft. Okay, well, catch the bad guys. I'm not showing you my receipt. And I never have this interaction. I just walk straight past. I say, no, thank you. It's not required by law, and they can't detain you. They can't put hands on you. They have put hands on me in the past. But I don't pursue that. It's not a big deal to me, really. Just let go of me. I'm leaving. You know, but in any case, the convenience fee. Think about it. You may not pay a convenience fee up front, but realistically, you are paying a convenience fee because what happens when that machine breaks down? It's not like somebody that's running the cash register up front can come over and fix the self-checkout. If the service goes down, they need to have somebody who's on call come and fix the service. In the meantime, they're no longer able to go out. Now, I understand that the concept of self-checkout is so that they can service their store so the store can service the customer better. But I don't believe in that. Hire one more person to work there, to do stock on the floor. You know, that's how my brain works. And we are cutting people's jobs out and giving higher expectations of these people. But if you go to Japan, everything is, if you are employed, most of the people in Japan, you know, are business people. And if you want hot food, you can get it in a convenience store, and you can make it yourself. Okay? The only thing that the cash register is there for is to ring you up for your food. But they're not making a ton of money working at that gas station or a convenience store. And not only that, but their food isn't expensive. So you're just paying for the convenience of someone being there. Some of those places don't even have people working there. So I know I've covered a lot of topics and a lot of information during this. But you got to understand that the way a lobster grows, they make changes for themselves. They buckle down and they work through. They know what they need to do. They need to shed their shells. They need to work through the adversity that they face in their lives. And during that time, we obtain substantial information. We obtain strength. We obtain understanding. And we obtain the ability to overcome that adversity long term because we work through those struggles. If you're not doing that, it's time to start now. Until our paths cross, stay strong, stay focused, stay sober. Much love. We'll see you guys soon.